Black girl. Quietly dines alone. A billionaire. Whispers, "Be my girlfriend for a while." The night smelled like garlic butter and rain. The little restaurant on the corner held its glow like a lantern, a warm box of light in a wet Los Angeles evening. Inside, a woman sat by the window with a bowl of soup and a book she hadn't turned a page in for 5 minutes. Her name was Maya Williams. Her scrubs were folded in her tote beside her chair, her hair pulled back, her shoulders sore in a way that felt like old stories settling in the bones. She ate alone a lot. It was easier that way. No performance, no noise she had to fill. Just a hot meal and a quiet seat. That calm broke when a shadow fell across her table, and a man's voice slid into the shell of her world like a secret. "Be my girlfriend for a while." Maya blinked and lifted her eyes. The man was tall, early 30s, clean lines everywhere, jawline, suit, polish, but his eyes were frantic, like someone searching for air under a heavy wave. He did not wait for her to laugh. He leaned in closer, his voice low and urgent as the doorbells jingled, and two men in dark suits stepped into the restaurant, their gaze sweeping the room like scanners. "Please," he said, not loud, not lazy. A plea pressed into a single word. "My mother sent them. They want to drag me home. They want me to sign my life to a contract marriage with Rebecca Hamilton. If they think I'm already with someone, they'll back off. Just play along. Just for tonight." Maya's spoon stopped above the bowl. She looked at the suits by the entrance. They were not here to eat. Her heart tapped faster. She was 29, a nurse at City General, a woman who had learned to find steady ground in chaos. She had spent a long time learning how to control her breath when rooms filled with panic. But this was not in any training manual. "You walked up to a stranger and asked her to fix your life," she said. "You think I'm that easy?" He swallowed and his throat worked around a hard truth. "I don't think you're easy. I think you're the only one I can ask who doesn't owe my mother anything." He glanced at the men again. "If they take me tonight, I lose the only choice I have left." Maya almost said no. Her body was tired. Her shoulders still ached where an angry patient had shoved her a week ago. She was not in the business of saving men who wore suits like armor. But the set of his mouth told her that he did not get to use his voice often, not for himself. And then the taller suit spotted him and touched a finger to his ear. The second man started forward. "Fine," Maya said. Her voice was dry, steady, surprising even herself. Just for a moment, relief sliced across his face. He slid into the chair across from her, lifted a piece of bread with the casual ease of someone who had been born to this room, and whispered, "I'm Richard. Richard Hale." Maya set her spoon down and folded her hands. "Maya Williams." He repeated it like he was checking the fit of a truth in his mouth. "Maya, perfect." Then the men reached them. Their shoes clicked against tile. One stopped behind Richard, close enough to cast a long shadow over the table. The other stood so near that Maya could smell his aftershave, sharp and cold. "This is your excuse, Mr. Hale?" the taller one asked, his mouth curling. "A nurse." The second man let his eyes slide over Maya like she was a chair and not a person. "A black girl, please. Your mother will love that." Heat rose in Maya's chest. The edges of the room sharpened. The hum of forks and low voices went still. For 1 second, everything in Maya's life, her father's folded flag, the desert heat of far posts, the bitter whisper of a teacher who said she was too loud, caught fire inside her. "This woman," Richard said, and his voice turned to steel, clean and hard, "is Maya Williams. And yes, she is my girlfriend. You will show her respect or you will stay silent." They laughed, cruel and flat. "Girlfriend? Don't insult us. Your promise to Rebecca Hamilton isn't a story, Mr. Hale. It's a contract. Your mother is waiting. We're here to take you home." Maya rose. She didn't plan it. Her chair scraped against tile and she looked up into the taller man's sneer as if she were measuring him for a truth he didn't want to hear. "Funny," she said, voice calm as a blade. "For men who say they're professionals, you're very bad at reading a room. You think humiliating a woman in public makes your case stronger?" The taller man's mouth twitched. Irritation cracked his face. "Sit down." This isn't your business. It is now, Maya said. He pushed her shoulder harder than he needed to. The world tilted. Her hip knocked the chair. A sharp sting ran down her arm. Someone gasped. A fork clattered. A voice murmured, "Did he just push her?" The men grabbed for Richard's arms. "Time to go." Richard pulled back, but their grip was solid. The room filled with a swarm of whispers. Phones lifted. A video light blinked on. Maya pressed her palm to the table and stood. A muscle memory woke up in her. Back when fear smelled like diesel and sand, when she carried a little orange booklet on triage and learned that a quick strike could stop a hand from hurting someone else. "Let him go," she said again. "Or what?" The man laughed. Maya's fist answered. It moved before she thought about it. A sharp chop to the nerve near his elbow. His arm buckled like a hinge. With her other hand, she drove a heel of her palm into the second man's ribs, a fast hit between breaths. Air left him in a short, shocked cough. Their grips opened. Richard stumbled back. Free. The restaurant burst into sound. A few people clapped. Someone whispered, "Damn!" The men backed up, hands to their bodies, their faces twisted with a mix of pain and disbelief. Then, like animals who knew they were no longer in control, they spit words they couldn't throw as punches. "This isn't over." Maya adjusted her coat, pulse thudding, breath tight but steady. "It never is," she said. The door slammed behind them. The room surged with chatter, a shaken thing returning to itself. Richard stood very still. He stared at her like a person who had been living under glass and just watched a crack race across it. "You're welcome," Maya said, and took her seat. Richard sat too. He smoothed his sleeves like he was reassembling the picture he was supposed to be in. "Maya Williams," he said softly, "remind me never to underestimate you." She looked at him from under her steady lashes. "Next time, pick someone else for your decoy." He let out a breath that was almost a laugh. There won't be a next time. But they both knew the night would not let them go flat and easy. It had a hook in both of them now, a thread pulled taut between a quiet woman and a man with a last name that could buy cities. The restaurant returned to its rhythm. Forks, sips, the low hum of relief. Richard leaned in again, not to perform but to speak like a person whose world had tilted and found a new point. "I owe you more than thank you," he said. "My mother doesn't tolerate rebellion. She's been planning my future since I was 15. Tonight was supposed to be my surrender dinner. I ran." Maya raised a brow. "So you crashed my meal and dragged me into your fight with your mother. Congratulations. Now I'm a target too." He nodded. The honesty was almost tender. "You are. And I'm sorry for that. But something else happened in there. When you stood up to them, when you took the hit and didn't sit down, you became more convincing than any PR statement I could hire. If they report back to my mother, they'll tell her about you. Tonight isn't the end. It's the start." Maya took a sip of water. The glass was cool against her fingers. "And now you want me to pretend to be your girlfriend until you win." "I want you to help me hold the line," he said. "Not just for me, for yourself too. Because what they said to you, they say it because they think they can. Because they think if they laugh at you, you'll leave. If you stand by me, they'll have to think twice." Maya thought of the men's faces. The easy contempt. She had seen that look so many times it felt like a brand. In a classroom, a teacher marked her attitude when she asked hard questions. In a crowded bus, a stranger clutched their bag tighter. In a hospital hallway, a family member asked if there wasn't someone more experienced, meaning whiter. She breathed slow. Her father had taught her that. A man who wore a uniform and carried silence like it was heavy and dear. "I don't believe this ends well," she said. "Maybe not," he said. "But it can end true." The waiter reappeared, cautious. Maya ordered coffee. Richard ordered red wine. He watched her over the rim of his glass. "Tell me who you are," he said. "Because if we're going to do this, I won't lie about you to anyone. I won't make you small to make anyone else comfortable." She tilted her head. "Not an audition?" "Respect," he said simply. Maya sighed. "I grew up in Englewood. My father was Army. My mother taught 3rd grade. I joined the service as a nurse because I wanted to do more than watch the news and feel helpless. 2 tours, one with a field hospital. I learned to stitch wounds and read fear and take orders and give them. I learned that I could do hard things even when my hands shook. When my father died, I came home. City General took me in. It's loud and messy and full of stories. I like that. It makes me feel like I'm connected to something real. That's it. No secrets. No hidden plan. He listened like a person who wasn't used to listening but wanted to get better at it. His face shifted into something like awe, something like apology. That sounds like the opposite of simple, he said. That sounds extraordinary. Don't flatter me, she said. Her mouth almost quirked. It won't change my answer. Tonight was an accident. I'm not signing up for your war. He nodded, swallowed, looked down at the deep red in his glass like he was asking it for courage. Then let me ask you one question, he said quietly. When they laughed at you, at us, did you feel nothing? Maya took her time. She looked at the front door where the bell had stopped ringing. She looked at her hands, at the little white line near her thumb from the time she cut herself opening a sterile packet too fast. She looked at him. I felt anger, she said. And pride, both. He held her gaze. Then help me make them feel both, too. She didn't answer. Not then. She finished her coffee. They made a fragile toast, his wine to her caffeine. When they stepped into the night, the city's wet pavement held the yellow lights like 1,000 small fires. He walked her to the curb. He told a cab to be kind. He looked at her like a man who had no right to ask and asked anyway. They'll come again, he said. I know, she said. Her heart beat hard against her ribs in the back of the taxi. The ink of the sky above the city was cut by headlights, signs, a red streak of brake lights. In the rear view, the driver said, That the rich guy? Like an old joke. Maya didn't answer. She couldn't. She went home and lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling and hated that the night had gotten inside her. By morning, the bruise on her shoulder had turned a tender purple. It hurt when she lifted her bag. She made coffee stronger than she needed. She told herself to forget his eyes. City General swallowed her. The waiting room was full. A child with a cut on his chin wailed until she made a paper crown and called him King Brave. A woman with chest pain clutched her shirt. Maya moved from bed to bed like a person who trusted her hands. But even as she checked vitals and adjusted oxygen and whispered comfort, the night stuck to her like heat. Her phone buzzed during her break, an unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she read the message. They're already talking about you. Meet me at the Regent Lounge. 8 p.m. Please, Maya. She didn't want to go. She went anyway. She put on a navy dress that fit like calm. She walked under the chandeliers that glittered like frost and tried not to feel like an intruder in a place that smelled like rich wood and old money. Richard saw her before she saw him. He stood up so fast it almost wasn't graceful. You came, he said. I shouldn't have, she said. But her voice wasn't harsh. It was tired. He didn't waste minutes. Rebecca is pressing harder. My mother is furious. They planned a dinner for Friday. They want to wrap a leash around my neck with crystal and call it honor. I need you there. Maya laughed with no humor. You want me to walk into your lion's den to get clawed for you? You are already in it, he said. After last night, my mother knows your name. If you stand alone, they will whisper until you're erased. If you stand with me, I can shield some of it. Not all, but some. You make it sound like I don't have a choice, she said. Sometimes we don't, he said. But we still choose who we are inside the small space left. She watched him and tried to decide if his eyes were playing her, or if they were simply telling her a truth men like him didn't often admit. Before she could answer, 2 men appeared at the lounge entrance. Not the same 2, but the same type. Shoulders like doors, eyes like locks. They don't quit, Maya said under her breath. Richard's jaw tightened. They won't stop. They came like they had right to stand too close. Your mother expects you home. This game is over, one said. He slid his look to Maya, dismissive. Enjoy it while it lasts. Maya stood. I thought you learned your lesson last night, she said, voice steady. He smirked. Or what? She moved and didn't move at the same time. She shifted her weight and let the man's wrist meet the twist of her grip. His balance went. He stumbled back. His partner reached for Richard. Maya's elbow met his ribs again, a quick, sharp line. The room gasped. A glass broke. Security appeared. The men lifted their hands like men who mistake retreat for honor and left with their backs stiff and their mouths sour. "You keep saving me," Richard said, breathless and amazed, like a person who had looked up at a plain ceiling and found a sky painted there. "Stop giving me reasons to," she said. He laughed, the sound small and honest. Then he took a breath like he had to steady something inside. "If you agree to stand beside me in public," he said, "I won't use you as a prop. I'll treat you like a partner. This is not just about escaping a marriage. It's about claiming my life. I believe loyalty is truth. Help me show them that." Maya looked up at the chandelier. The light sent glittering pieces across the ceiling like stars. She thought of the ER's harsh brightness, of desert sun, of a classroom window that she used to stare out of and imagine running. She lowered her eyes. "3 nights," she said. "I'll go to the dinner on Friday. After that, we'll see." He nodded like a man who had been given not a win but a chance to prove he could earn one. "To 3 nights that could change everything," he said. The Hale estate rose like a palace pretending to be a house. Columns, hedges trimmed into perfect shapes that looked like they knew the rules better than you. Inside, the air was too cold, too sweet with roses, and full of voices that hummed like people who had never worried about a late fee. Maya walked with her back straight. She had walked into tents where the air itself trembled. She could walk into this. Eleanor Hale stood at the head of the dining room like she had been poured out of a silver mold. Her hair was a crown of steel. Her mouth was a line. When her eyes met Maya's, they did not blink. "So this is the woman," she said. It sounded like an appraisal. "Mother," Richard said, his jaw tight, "this is Maya Williams. She's my partner." "A nurse," Eleanor said. "How quaint." Before Maya could answer with something polite and sharp, a red dress cut in. Rebecca Hamilton. She was beautiful in the way of expensive glass. Clear and cold, nothing you could hold without cutting yourself. Her smile flashed teeth. "Richard," she said, "you didn't mention bringing company. How surprising." Dinner came on plates so thin they looked like they might melt if you breathed too hard on them. Wine flowed like velvet. The talk slid across stock prices and art and who bought which house in which neighborhood. Then the knives came out, wrapped in words. "So, Maya," Eleanor said. It sounded like she had to taste the name before she could swallow it. "The work must be very demanding. Does it leave time for anything else? Social advancement, perhaps?" Maya set down her fork. She kept her voice even. "It leaves time for saving lives, and for remembering that dignity matters more than climbing a ladder." The table went quiet. Someone's glass touched their plate too loudly. Richard's mouth softened like he wanted to smile but knew now was not the time to give himself that kind of release. Rebecca leaned forward. Her earrings caught the light and threw it like tiny weapons. "And how long have you and Richard been involved?" Maya felt the bait on the line. She did not bite. "Long enough," she said, "to know he is not defined by cages, even the ones made of gold." Rebecca's smile faltered. Eleanor did not change. "Richard," Eleanor said, "your duty is not a toy. It is the spine of our legacy. You do not break it because you want to, as you say. Breathe." "My duty," he said, voice cool, "is to lead, not to be led, and I refuse to barter myself for a business deal." "Be careful," Rebecca said. "Standing beside someone like her could cost you everything." Maya's hands tightened under the linen. The words were not new. The room gave them power. She did not let them win. "In my world," she said softly, "we don't ask if the person on the table is rich enough or the right color to deserve a chance. We just try to keep them alive. Maybe your world could learn something." Something broke. Not glass. Not sound. Something invisible. The dinner ended with smiles that cut and laughter that sounded like no one was actually amused. Outside, under the cold stars, Richard blew out a breath he had been holding all night. "Well," he said, mouth crooked, "that went as predictable as a bad movie." You were brave, Maya said. But brave doesn't scare her. Not yet. Then we get smarter, he said. No lies between us. If this is going to work, we tell each other the truth even when it hurts. Maya nodded. Fine, she said. Then here's mine. The press will come. My hospital will feel it. They will ask me to choose between my work and your fire. If that happens, you don't get to be noble and walk away to save me. You fight for me, on my terms too. His voice went tender and firm at the same time. Deal. Monday hit like a blunt instrument. The gossip magazines put her on the cover with a blurry photo at Eleanor's table. The headline called her Mystery Nurse or Gold Digger. Maya folded the magazine and put it in a drawer like you put sharp things out of reach of curious hands. At noon, Dr. Henry Reed called her into his office. He was a middle-aged man with tired eyes who had always treated Maya like a person, not a pair of hands. I don't know what's true, he said. I'm guessing most of it isn't. But the administration is nervous. You know how this works. Bad press is a disease. Wash your hands after you touch it and try not to let it spread. They'll be watching. My patients are still cared for, she said. I show up. I do my job. That is what matters, he nodded. It does to me, he said. But sometimes we are not the ones who get to decide what matters to them. That evening, Richard waited in the hospital lot like a man who had traded boardrooms for streetlights. He drove with the ocean to their right. The road curled along the cliff. The water was dark and old and saint. To outlast them, he said. To make standing with me look less like chaos and more like courage. Which means I need you at the charity gala Friday, she scoffed. You want me to put on a dress and play along while people try to use their eyes to erase me? I want you to wear your own face, he said, and make them look at it. She stared at his profile for a long moment. Fine, she said. But if I even feel you using me, I won't, he said. I swear it. On Friday, she put on deep green and let her friend from the ER, Tiana, laugh and say, Girl, you look like a whole storm and a calm after it. The Conrad Hotel gleamed like a box of gold. Inside, cameras shredded the night into flashes. Richard, is this your girlfriend? Maya, how does it feel to move from ER nurse to... She kept her mouth closed and her head high. The cameras could take as many pictures as they wanted. She would not give them any words to twist. At the auction, when the MC called for donations for a field hospital overseas, Richard raised his paddle. $2 million, he said. It wasn't a flex. It was steady. The room gasped. He turned to Maya and spoke just loud enough for people to hear because he wanted them to hear. For the lives you'll touch, he said. For the ones you already did. Something heavy in Maya's chest shifted. She had not known she needed that. But she did. She felt it like someone had said her name in a way that fit. Then Rebecca found them, of course. She was all shimmer and sharp edges. Lovely performance, she said. But everyone knows this is a phase. Men like Richard have rebellions. Then they come home. Maya didn't flinch. If home means chains, she said, I'll show him the door myself. Weeks blurred. The press learned her face. Neighbors peered. At work, the hallway felt longer, the whispers louder. One afternoon, a nurse muttered, Gold digger, as Maya walked by. Maya stopped. She turned. She looked the nurse in the eye, steady and calm. I've earned every life I helped save, she said. Can you say the same, Slintz? The nurse looked away. That night, someone slid an envelope under her door. Inside was a photo of her in uniform, doctored to make it look like a fight. A typed note, you don't belong. Walk away before you're buried. Maya sat with the paper in her hands. Her heart beat hard. She felt fear and then something bigger than fear. She picked up her phone. They're threatening me, she told Richard. He was quiet for a second. When he spoke, his voice was low. We don't hide, he said. We don't let them turn your past into a weapon. We hold a press conference, not to feed the beast, to tell the truth. They stood together in front of cameras the next day. Maya's stomach was tight. She could feel her pulse in her palms. She put her hands on the podium and looked out at the people who wanted to turn her into a story they could sell. Her voice did not shake. I served with honor, she said. I learned to patch bodies and watch the sky and sleep in rooms where grief lived. These so-called records you've seen are lies built from pieces of truth. They are meant to break me. I will not break. I will not apologize for surviving. If the price of loving someone is your disgust, then you should save it. It doesn't spend in any world I want to live in. Richard stepped up beside her. Maya is not a liability, he said, his voice clear. She is strength. I will not abandon her to make anyone in this room more comfortable. Afterward, he poured them water in his office with hands that trembled a little. I tied my future to you in public, he said. His mouth almost smiled. I realize I did that a long time ago without saying it out loud. Everything sped up. The board scheduled an emergency meeting. Hailtech's lobby filled with suits and phone calls and tension. Richard squeezed Maya's hand before he disappeared behind a glass door. She waited with her back straight and her chin up. A woman with a name tag that said Lydia, Administrative, offered her tea with shaky hands. Maya smiled and took it. When Richard came back hours later, he looked like a person who had been standing in a high wind. They postponed the vote, he said. We bought time. Time is a tool, Maya said. Use it. Rebecca did not waste any. She called a fundraiser that was really a gathering of investors who liked being told they were the smartest people in the room. She set up a screen and rolled edited clips that turned Maya's work into a performance. The crowd let out soft, horrified noises at the places where the cuts were designed to make them gasp. Let me speak, Maya whispered to Richard. He nodded. He knew when to lead and when to follow. Maya stood in a light meant to show every flaw. She stood anyway. You call this truth, she said, looking at the screen. It's pieces meant to make a story that fits your fear. Here is my truth. I have held strangers who called me by their mother's names because fear makes us all children. I have scrubbed blood from my jeans and then called my friend so she would tell me a joke and I could sleep. I have done this because it matters. If that makes me unfit to stand in your gold rooms, then your rooms are too small, not me. The room shifted. People looked at each other like they were unsure what to do with a truth that did not apologize. Then hands started to clap. 1, 2, many. Rebecca smiled a thin, cracked smile. This isn't over, she said, not to the room, to Maya. That was fine. Maya didn't want it to be easy. She wanted it to be honest. The board vote came like a storm that had been building around the house for weeks. Lightning in the distance, wind rattling windows. They stepped through reporters with microphones like teeth. Inside, Eleanor sat at the head of the table, still and bright and sharp. Rebecca hovered like a shadow that wore diamonds. You were not invited, Eleanor said to Maya without looking at her. She's with me, Richard said. Truth or performance? Rebecca asked. Her tone was sweet and sour. Richard's voice did not rise. That made it stronger. Enough, he said. You've tried to fix my life with the control you call love. You've tried to erase a woman because she scares you. Your fear does not get to write my future. Passionate, Rebecca said. But passion doesn't pay contracts. Investors want stability. He has risked stability on this experiment. Maya stood. She did not ask for permission. You use the word belong like it is yours to hand out, she said. Here is my belonging. I am here because I stood. You tried to turn what I have been through into shame. You failed. If your world cannot stand a woman like me at its table, your table will fall anyway. Pens scratched. Ballots folded. The chair counted while the room held its breath. One vote kept Richard in the chair. It felt like a thin rope in a storm. It felt like everything. Eleanor rose, smiling like a person who knew she would outlast everyone else because she always had. Survival is not victory, she said. Storms come again. Then we will stand again, Maya said. Outside, cameras flashed like lightning. A reporter asked Maya, how does it feel to stand victorious? Maya did not say victorious. She said, it feels like I can breathe, and that was enough. Peace did not come. It never does. There was a new headline the next morning that tried to turn her father's funeral flag into a prop. There was a phone call from Dr. Reed, voice weary. The board put you on leave pending a review, he said. I'm sorry I fought. They're afraid. Maya sat in her kitchen with the letter in her hand and felt her life tilt. She cried, but quietly, like a person who had learned to let it out in little storms so the big one didn't drown her. Then she wiped her face and put the letter in her bag and went to see Richard. "They reached into my life," she said, tossing the paper on his desk. He picked it up. His face hardened. "Then we reached back. On your terms, too." On Friday night, he brought her not to a ballroom but to a community center where the lights were kind and the voices were real. He introduced her to clinic directors and school principals and a woman who ran a shelter with a laugh that could lift a room. He introduced her like her name was a gift he was lucky to give. A reporter approached carefully. "Why?" she asked. "Why keep going?" "Because the world has been against me before," Maya said. "And I'm still here. And because sometimes standing with someone means reminding them they can be brave even when they are tired." Richard squeezed her hand. "You save me," he whispered. "Every day. I save myself," she said. "You're just nearby when I do." Rebecca planned one more grand show. She hired a digital forensics expert to hold up papers and point at red circles on photos and say words like evidence and pattern. It worked on some people. They wanted to do what they had always done, believe the loudest voice in the room. But it didn't work everywhere, because in the seats, there were people who had heard Maya's voice and recognized something in it that wasn't performance. It was grit. It was dignity. Richard's team found proof of doctored files, too, a missing metadata trail, an email from a private account that should have been deleted but wasn't. They gathered it quietly. They waited. And when they brought it to the board, not with a press release but with a packet and a quiet, "Please look," the room shifted. It didn't collapse, but it moved. Eleanor called Maya to a meeting, alone. No cameras, no gold. A small sitting room with framed black and white photos of a boy with messy hair. Richard as a child. A shadow of his father in the way he stood. "I want to see what you are without an audience," Eleanor said. Maya sat. "You already have," she said. "You saw me in a restaurant. You saw me in your house. You saw me where you didn't want me. I haven't changed in any of those rooms." Eleanor leaned. Learn to be strong in ways she never asked to learn. It means brave is not clean. It's messy, and it hurts, and it doesn't always end with applause. "I want to be brave the way you are," he said. "You don't have to be the way I am," she said. "You have to be the way you are when no one tells you who that is." He nodded like he was practicing hearing that inside himself. Then he took her hand. They stood like that, two people who had been through a wind that could have knocked them down and chose to stand a while longer because they had learned how. Hailtech held a second vote months later. It wasn't in the news. They changed bylaws quietly, closing the loopholes that let whispers hold power. They started a health initiative with clinics in neighborhoods that needed them most. They named the first one after Maya's father. She cried in the parking lot before the ribbon cutting. She cried on the stage when she spoke about a man who taught her to stand still when she wanted to run. Richard cried too, but in the way of someone who had learned it was okay to do it where people could see. City General lifted Maya's suspension after the review. Dr. Reed called her into his office with a smile that looked like relief. "They came to their senses," he said. Also, a dozen letters from patients arrived. The board read them. That may have helped more than anything. Tiana hugged Maya in the hallway and whispered, "You walk like the ground built itself to hold you." Maya laughed, open and easy, and said, "Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Either way, I'm walking." Rebecca didn't disappear. People like her don't, but her shine dulled. Investors became wary of drama that didn't pay. She found other rooms to stand in where people still mistook her for truth. Eleanor didn't become warm, but she stopped sending men to drag her son home. She started calling once a week and asking to see him without a chessboard between them. There were new storms. There always are. A lawsuit, a rumor, a neighbor who said a thing loud enough to make Maya's teeth ache. But the storms hit a different house now. It had a spine, a roof built by people who had learned to say no and enough, and this is what love looks like. One night, a year after the restaurant, they ate at the same corner table. Rain fell slow against the window. The room didn't know them the way some rooms did. It let them be. The waiter brought bread and smiled and said, "You two look like you finally got to sit down." "We did," Maya said. She watched Richard tear the bread and offer her a piece. His hands were steady now. He had lines at the corners of his eyes from learning how to be a person in love. She liked those lines. They looked like maps. "Do you remember?" he asked, "and the first thing I said to you in this room?" She laughed. "Yes, it was a terrible line." "It wasn't a line," he said. "It was the most honest thing I've ever said. I needed help. I asked for it. You've gotten better at asking." She said. "You've gotten better at saying yes." Said. She broke the bread and put half on his plate and liked the way the little act felt like a prayer. The doorbells jingled. 2 men in suits walked in, but they were just people who wanted dinner. Maya relaxed. Her shoulder didn't hurt anymore. Her heart beat like a thing at rest in its own skin. On the way out, an older woman stopped them. She put her hand on Maya's arm gently. "Thank you," she said, "for standing and not backing down. My granddaughter watches the news." She said, "She looks like me. That matters." "It does," Maya said. Her voice went thick for a second. Then she nodded and took Richard's hand and stepped out into a city that sparkled with lights and noise and truth. There would be more fights. There would be days where Maya would come home from the hospital tired to her bones and sit on the floor and lean her head back against the couch and breathe. There would be nights where Richard would lay awake and think about a line on a balance sheet and wonder if it meant something bigger than numbers. They would love each other anyway, in quiet and in sound, in rooms with chandeliers and in parking lots with bad lighting, in the space between who they were told to be and who they chose to become. This is what happened when a black girl quietly dined alone, and a billionaire whispered, "Be my girlfriend for a while." It started as a trick and turned into a truth. It started with a push against a shoulder and turned into a hand held in a lobby full of questions. It started with anger, and it grew into courage. It carried them through rooms where people voted on their worth and into rooms where they got to decide it for themselves. It made them brave, not because they enjoyed the fight, but because they refused to bow to it. They learned that dignity is a house you build brick by brick, with hard words and soft hands, with no lies, with a spine that doesn't bend to fear. They learned that storms can take your breath but not your name if you speak it out loud. They learned that love is not a press conference. It is a quiet kitchen, a steady glance, a promise to walk into the next room together even if you both are scared. And because stories deserve to end with exactly what began them, even if the path between the first word and the last is full of broken glass and tenderness, this one closes with the title that became their life. Black girl quietly dines alone. A billionaire whispers, "Be my girlfriend for a while."